Should I stop my video and then you'll introduce?
No, I just started the live session live on the FB.
Huh. Keep the video on.
Yes. Kitu madam, it's live now. We can start in 1 minute.
All right.
All the best, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll start.
Yeah, you can start, madam.
A very good evening to one and all. As we all know, running is perhaps one of the most natural and instinctive sports. Yet, it also creates huge potential for injury due to its repetitive nature. Therefore, here I am, Dr. Kitusheoran, and today I'll be conducting this important webinar on running injuries, their prevention, detection, and recovery. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Chandana Mannedi, a mind-body alignment coach. She did her bachelor's in physiotherapy, DDH, and RC from Hyderabad. She then went on to pursue her master's in orthopedic, manual, and sports physiotherapy. In addition to these, she's highly qualified in clinical Pilates, craniosacral therapy, visceral therapy, and selective functional movement assessment. She was also awarded Indian Achievers Award 2021 for Entrepreneur of the Year. Our speaker has perfected the art of pain relief, injury prevention, rehabilitation, and holistic wellness by integrating Pilates with movement therapy to achieve path-breaking success for her clients comprising of national and international athletes, various celebrities, and fitness enthusiasts, both in Hyderabad and Secunderabad. Thank you, Chandana, for being with us today and sharing your knowledge, which I'm sure will be extremely useful for all of us here. Over to you now.
Thank you so much, Kittu, for that humbled introduction. Thank you so much. And it is actually a great pleasure to be in conversation with all the Hyderabad runners. And I'm definitely treating this as an opportunity to come and share not the science, but definitely my clinical experience and exposure for the past 14 years and some international exposure that I definitely got and inculcated into my both clinics in Secunderabad and Jubilee Hills. So yes, it's a huge pleasure Thank you for inviting me for this, and I welcome all the people who have come to listen to me, what I have to say today. That's a pretty grateful moment for me. Let's start by saying that this webinar is majorly to make you more as in control of understanding what's happening with your body and your injuries, rather than you only depending on healthcare professionals. So that is why I did not bring in too much of science behind it. I brought in a lot of clinical exposure, what I see usually in clinic, and I summarized it for you today. So let me allow me to share my screen here, so that yes. And okay. All right, I hope you all are able to see my screen. Instead of saying, let's sort out the injuries, and I will give you a set of exercises that you all can do to prevent injuries. That will be absolutely not fair, because each one of us have different lifestyles, bodies, of course, and running styles, and many more factors which can affect how you got those injuries. Not just so black and white that, oh, this muscle is tight, oh, this muscle is weak, or you don't have core strength. That's a very famous thing I keep getting into my clinic. So instead of that, I thought first, let's understand the injuries. Again, not the science perspective. It's more to do with, how you understand your bodies. So I thought, to run better, you need to first understand how you can go off with that. So first, a little bit of thought-provoking questions for you guys. Do you know the difference between strains and sprains, discomfort, pain, soreness, injury? Because when I ask anyone, hey, why did you stop running? Oh, I got a running injury. And what's that injury? So they don't even say strain or a sprain or a discomfort, pain or soreness. Straight away, they talk about injury. Now, injury, I feel all these things are leading to each other. Like when your repetitive movements are happening constantly. So any injury or any discomfort, pain in your body, or strain, pain in your body is only because of two reasons: overuse and underuse. These are the only two reasons. So you need to really check in your repetitive movements what is being overused, and are you balancing it with the underused muscles or movements and patterns? I'll speak about them more in the coming slides. So if you are not taking care of that, then repetitive movements can give rise to ligament or tendon or muscle strains and sprains. And this, if it is underdiagnosed or not recognized or not taken any kind of care to solve it, or even sometimes it happens overdiagnosed. So that's another topic, how people overdiagnose themselves and start diagnosing themselves, and they start resting and they think, oh, wow, we are resting, now we're good to go, and the pain still exists, right? So if these repetitive movements are giving rise to strains and sprains, then if you do not sort them out, they either stay in your body like a discomfort and you continue to run with that discomfort, thinking that because I'm running, this is common. Maybe I should just push through the pain, mind over body, no pain, no gain. All these come into your heads because that's what has been so much promoted out there with, pain, about pain. So you do not take that care about solving the issue or even recognizing or detecting the issue, where it's coming from, what's happening. You end up getting into pain. Now, soreness is very different from pain. So when you have muscle which has not been working for a certain number of days, months, or years, you work with them for the first time, there is a soreness. The famous lactic acid is collected. I'm just using that word as a layman term, guys. There are more toxins that are produced when you use your muscle or your body. But the soreness is created by collection of fluids which are produced as a toxin or as a result of any kind of a movement. So let's keep it that much. Now, once these discomforts or chronic pains are not sorted, or you've not given enough rest or recovery, then they can go into injury. How? By the way, if at all you have a pain and there's a discomfort, you keep compensating your body because you want to keep on pushing your body, thinking that I need to run, I have to push through it. Well, the body does what you want it to do, and it continues to compensate by posture changes or using other compensatory muscles. And you know what happens? Because your body has a symmetrical structure, muscularly or even soft tissue wise or even skeleton wise, it has that effect from gravity. So when your muscles or your structure gives up, saying that if I do more than that, I will have grave injuries, you better have a smaller range of injury. And that's when you have muscle tears, where you completely debilitate yourself from running more further. This is what happens at the level of injury. So you can actually detect your injuries at the level of strain, sprains, pain, and discomfort, and you don't have to go up to the injury. Now, how do we detect? That's a question I'm sure you all are here for as well. First of all, we need to understand that every illness or sickness has some kind of a screening test. Like if you go to an eye doctor, they will ask you to read from a board where you will be able to read some letters with smaller font or bigger font and etc. Then they can detect something is wrong or not wrong, depending on that screen. Now, what is the screen for injury? I am just giving a pause so that you can start thinking. We go to some doctor or physiotherapist. We go and tell them that I have pain. Either they do some clinical test, muscular test, or they will recommend you some radiological test. Agree? And then with that radiological test or the clinical test, they will start saying your muscle is weak, your muscle is tight, you have compression, you have cartilage issue, etc., etc. But what actually makes me think all the time when someone comes with pain is that when your activity has movements, why are we not doing movement screen? Why are we doing radiological screen? Why are we doing muscle screen? We should be having some kind of a movement screen. You should be checking how are you moving? What movement is causing you pain? What is the movement which actually became over the time more into a compensatory movement, or the whole pattern has completely disrupted? You need to remember that when, or any sport, not just running, even moving like walking, that also involves a collective movements. It's not just one movement. You don't bend your knee and run. You have to bend your knee, the opposite knee has to extend, your opposite hip has to flex and then extend. So it's a collective movements which are happening, which is propelling you into that movement. Now, when your movements are involved, why are we only checking how is the muscle in a static position? That's when your radiological stuff is happening. If a physiotherapist is checking at their clinics, it's happening inside their rooms. Why is that happening? So I feel there is more need of movement screen because no muscle works alone. Why should it be checked alone? So if we have to talk about movements, then we need to talk about from some primal movements. The primal movements are the movements that you as you age, like your milestones as an infant, to your adulthood, you try and go through some primal movements. Now, these movements are something that we are not at all nurturing. And suddenly we decide to go and lift. Suddenly we go and decide to stretch. We go and run. So all of these are happening in a sudden movement pattern, which you don't even have, or you haven't nurtured them in the last few months or years. I don't know, that it can keep on changing, I believe, depending on your lifestyles and your trainings, right? So all of this cumulatively, collectively has to be tested. We need to know those 5 primal movements. When was the last time you were on the floor and you rolled around. Did you see your kids rolling? As they're growing up, maybe yes. But as a habit or as any time during the week, did you try rolling? If you are at the comfort of home and you are listening to this webinar, why don't you just get off your hips and then roll down and see if you're able to roll effectively? Are the muscles working that way? Are you in line with the gravity? Then crawling. They say that if you have missed crawling in your milestones, it can actually affect how you balance yourselves on your feet. Interesting. And if you have not used your sitting muscles for sitting down, I'm not talking about sitting on your chair or in your car or anywhere else, sitting down on the floor with crossed legs. Most of us are actually struggling there. Then the kneeling. Most of the clients whom I ask them to kneel, they're like, oh, my knees are very, very sensitive. I cannot kneel on my knees. Why is that a problem now? So without even understanding these primal movements, you are doing your running, which requires about 15 degrees max of knee flexion, 15 degrees or 5 to 15 degrees of hip flexion. And that's how much you need bending. What about the rest of out of 130 degrees, you must have used only 15 degrees of bending of knee and hip. What about the rest of the 100 degrees or 115 degrees? When did you use it? Here comes the buffer systems, guys. You have not nurtured the other part of the muscle. It can be utilized or it can be or should be challenged. And you're asking the muscle to only perform at 15 degrees. How fair is that? How fair is that? Your injuries are happening not because you are only running, but you're not giving the muscles this full efficiency of using it, because it is actually supposed to be used for 130 degrees, but you have used it only for 15 degrees. You've trained it only for 15 degrees and not more than that. You're loading, you're training, and you're stretching only for that much. We will go into it in the further slides. The last one is your full squat, the Asian squat. I know most of us, I'm not saying that you should be doing 100% right away, but all of us should be going towards it. All of us should be making efforts to bend your knees, ankles, and the hips along with the pelvis and the lower back in such position where your muscles are most relaxed. You must be thinking, how can squat be a relaxed position? Evolutionarily, that is the most relaxed position. That's why we defecate in that position. It is supposed to be most active as well as relaxed position. It's an active, relaxed position. That's why you excrete. I hope you understand that. We can talk about it more anytime, any other time. So at Flex Pilates, we do this kind of movement analysis, which include all the 5 primal patterns, wherein, we try to check the cervical flexion, extension, your neck flexion, extension, rotations. Rotations are the most, or I would say least considered when it comes to movement, especially in running, because mostly people don't think that they are rotating. They're only going in one plane of motion where there is flexion and extension, right? But your mid back is going through a lot of minute rotations at every level of your spine, especially your mid spine. So we have upper extremity patterns, that is your upper body patterns, where you have your shoulder and your mid back and your spinal bending, extension, rotation, single leg stance, the balance part of it, as well as the deep squat. There is this practicality involved in it. That's why I'm not able to show it, and also the time that I was given for doing this webinar, I don't think so it is fair to take more time on this, but we can do a practical session very soon. I think Hyderabad Runners is planning for that, so I'll be grateful to be part of it. So this is what happens at Flex Pilates. Then injury is inevitable. Having said that, I might say that prevent all the time. I'm saying that prevention is the best cure, but I'm saying also that injury is something inevitable. Yes, of course. So you are trying to perform or you are challenging your body at the peak, and then you are asking your body to become this hit machine, and of course there will be wear and tear. Of course there's going to be some kind of a damage because you are challenging, going beyond what it can perform. So what do you do then to manage so that you can continue to run? Now, I look at injuries this way. There should be something called as injury prevention. And if at all injury happens, because I said injury is inevitable, there can be accidental ones, there can be something that you must have pulled and you continued and you need rehab. So that's injury which can be rehabbed and recovered as well. So when I talk about prevention, it involves training, guys. When I'm saying training, it involves a lot more than just strength training and training to run. It involves a lot more. So generally, you have to have some kind of a training system which actually builds your buffer system, which I spoke earlier about how to build your buffer systems, in the sense that you should be training that muscle for its full length and strength and flexibility or mobility. I would like to call it like that way. And there is some specific training that you need to do some running specific drills or your technique, your skill, etc., so that you are not putting undue stress on the muscles which are not required to perform in this particular sport. Now, there are some screening tools which can prevent you, like how I said, movement screening tests, which I already spoke. Those are dynamic. The static one is mostly like your posture analysis. I get to hear this a lot, that my posture is this way, that's why I run this way. I look at it another way. I look at it more like, because you're running and you're compensating your body, the body has adapted a posture. And this posture is posing that kind of an impact on the body to again run in a very compensatory mode. And this kind of catch-22 situation, like a loop, you keep developing some or the other distress in your body frame. So that's something that your screening can give you much ahead of before even you get into any kind of injuries. Now, coming to rehab and recovery, please understand, resting is not recovering. Resting is not going to rehab that muscle or that soft tissue which has put you in that kind of discomfort. Stopping going for your runs or resting that area will not solve your problem. So what do? Be your own detective. Start understanding, even when you're recovering and doing a rehab with a healthcare professional, you need to be that detective to help them to understand, where did it start? When did it start? How much does it pain? What's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? And is the pain debilitating? Is the pain stopping you from moving? Or it is not stopping you from moving 100%, maybe about 50% today, and then tomorrow it is only 30%, and I'm close to zero, it's not at all stopping me. And gradually going back to your full-fledged running requires that kind of an understanding of your own body. So you have to be your own detective, and this will be quite helpful for someone like me who keeps asking questions, how do you feel today? So that's the question I always ask to myself as well as my clients, because I want them to know how do they feel rather than depending on my assessment and my understanding of their bodies. This will be a huge help to you and also to the healthcare professional. Now, before we understand what to train or where to train, how to train, please take it. Running is not your fitness. Just because you're running, it does not turn into your fitness routine. So what do you do for your fitness routine? If I ask some people I have asked in the past, they say, I run. Do you run for fitness? But then why are the injuries happening if it is for fitness? And running, looking at the kind of sport it is, it requires a lot more than just endurance, right? So if running is not fitness, then what is fitness? You need 5 components to be called as fit. You cannot just lift weights, build muscles, and say that I am fit. You are fit to lift that amount of weight, period. You are flexible or you are mobile only for that muscle at that particular range. Is your strength enough to run for longer periods? Endurance is there to run longer periods, but are you able to sustain that endurance, which is part of your running fitness? That is strength endurance. Now, agility. I do not understand how you can forget that on top of your shoulders or on top of your pelvis and top of your shoulders, there is head, and inside there is brain, which controls everything else in your body. If you are not nurturing those reflexes, which are happening on an automatic phase or automatic mode, I don't know how you can be running like butter. If you want to see someone running like a song, then it is not because they are just lighter on the feet, but they must have trained themselves to be lighter on their feet through agility drills, through plyometric drills, specific to running drills. There are a lot of skips that you can do, a lot of hops that you can do, a lot of kicks that you can do, which are not muscular base alone, guys. Majorly controlled by your reflexes, which you are born with. If you see an infant, they start kicking their arms, kicking their legs. They do a lot of that stuff just to make sure the muscles and tendons are connecting back to their bodies and they are actually building strength and movements of patterns, which I will explain it very, very soon. Now, power. Power is force and time bound. Now, if you are thinking of powerfully swifting through the aerodynamically going through that space, then you need a lot of power. It's not something that running does not require. Any sport, any activity, even if you're not doing a sport, you still need power. So please do not limit your fitness to just strength, flexibility, right? Flexibility, wow. So this is a very, very important and favorite topic of mine, where I get to see people saying that I stretch, I can touch my feet. But yeah, it's a cumulative movement of your spine, your hips, your hamstrings, ankles, and your shoulders, neck. Which part of your spine or which part of your body is flexible to touch the toes? You could be more flexible at the level of your spine. You could be more flexible at the level of your hamstrings. How do you know that which part of it is resilient enough for you to run more? So that I will speak more in the coming slides. Now, here is my training cheat sheet. If you want to train, whether it is for rehab, whether it is for recovering on a regular basis, to build your buffer systems, to make sure that you are trying to get into a routine, long-term, short-term, doesn't matter. Here are a few things that I want you to take into consideration as an important component. All of them are required and you must be including in your training schedules, not just running kilometers, but also making sure that you're not letting your body fail when you're running so many kilometers. So first is availability of the tissues. Here, actually, I put this point here to explain how manual therapy works and why it should be available. But I was also thinking about this one thought I had in my mind, that one of my clients told me that I started running because I hurt my back. That's why I thought running is less impacting. So I started running. Now here, the muscles are still recovering, or the muscles are not good enough to hold his body in place. And still he is going and doing. I'm sure you all agree with me, running is an intense sport. It does not come under just an activity. So because of that kind of an mindset, if he goes and runs, continues to run, the back might not, but then because of the back, the legs might compensate, the shoulders might compensate, the neck might compensate. So still he doesn't have the availability of the tissues to run yet. He needs to rehabilitate. Now, the availability of tissues in terms of a manual therapist, I would say that, let's say that you're recovering from some kind of injury where you have gone into some surgery. First, we have to make the tissues available manually by draining the swelling or relaxing those muscles or loosening up the muscles through manual therapy, so that when you start your other forms of training, the muscle is available or the soft tissue is supple enough to be able to take the training in the further phases, right? That's the first thing. Now, the second one is the full range of motion. When I say full range of motion, I do not mean only the length of the muscle. I mean the capsule, I mean the ligament, I mean the tendon, I mean the covering of the muscles, covering of your bone, that's your periosteum. Everything should be involved. Now, with so many tissues involved, you will be like, what is that one exercise which will stretch all of that? Well, that's very difficult. You have to understand there is no one magic exercise, like one magic pill that you will put it in and say that now my knees are safe. Now my back is safe. I will not get injuries. No, that's not going to happen. There is no magic pill. There is no one exercise which can get you out of this kind of a situation. You need to make sure there is a lot of mobility happening. When I say mobility, what is the point of having good length in your muscle or your soft tissue where you don't have any strength in that length of the muscle, and you don't have any control in that length and strength of the muscle? So please don't think of flexibility, which you are stretching that muscle or the soft tissue from one end to the other end. That's not flexibility. You should have a stability component. You should have a mobility component, and you should hold the stable point, move the mobile part. All of this has to work together, and then I call it as full range of motion. If you are flexing your hip for 130 degrees and your knee for 130 to 140 degrees, then you're training the flexibility part of it. If it is not happening, then that doesn't come under flexibility part or even mobility part. And one more thing I wanted to also mention here is that your warm-ups can include flexibility, but your warm-up flexibility are not the same. So we can talk that further if we have more time left. Now, next is muscle strength. Muscle strength, everyone thinks that, okay, bulk is equals to strength. No, it is not. It is just hypertrophying of your muscular muscle fiber. That's it. It does not mean you have more strength. You must be having more strength to lift the weights, but is it helpful for you to run a marathon? Have you ever thought of it? Have you ever thought of muscles that you are training for strength? Are they helpful in also stability, which is your small muscles? Your big muscles are important for moving you, prime movers, and small muscles are important for stability. Who had the thought about we have more than 600 muscles in our body? 300 are the prime movers. About 100 are your small muscles. How many do you train? 4? Quads, hamstrings, calves, glutes. Everyone's favorite, runner's favorite. Glutes, glutes, glutes. Glutes are weak, glutes are tight, glutes are not working, hamstrings are tight, etc., etc. Right? That's what we do. Max to max, maybe back, because the back pain also comes into running injuries. Maybe back muscles, back extensions. The core. For everything, core is the culprit. For everything, core is the solution. Well, core muscles are not just your ab muscles, guys. There's more to core. It is in the center. That's why we are showing the ab muscles, but it is your adductors, it is your glutes, it is your breath, your diaphragm, all of that. Now, when we come to small muscles, if your muscles in the face, specifically your jaw muscles, if they are at fault, can you imagine it can also affect your foot flexibility? A small test for you all. Let's check your mobility in your feet by doing a test of your jaw range of motion. Take your 3 fingers, keep them nice and close, and try and open your mouth and measure whether you are comfortably going with all the 3 fingers. You can do it right away. Mine are 4, by the way. So my feet are quite flexible. How's yours? Right? And if I say that your pelvic floor muscle, which does not involve in any of the movements of the body, is not activated, or it is not relaxed enough and contracting at a pace which is required, can disrupt your ankles and your feet, can disrupt your balance in your lower body. Can you think of your pelvic floor just sitting there? Do you know where is pelvic floor? Do you think it's a muscle at all? Is it important for anyone who is running? How many of you, especially women, are suffering with incontinence while running? How many of you women out there who are running or jumping, doing squats or even jumps, hops, how many of you are suffering with incontinence? Incontinence is peeing in the pants. How many of you? I'm sure many, because I do have runners who have complained that to me. They have to always keep clearing their bladder to run longer. And longer, they don't mean 3 hours. They mean only 40 minutes. So the bladder is not at all competent to hold. That's a muscle. Bladder is a muscle. So you need to train those muscles also. So you might be asking, how many muscles should we strengthen? You have to. You have to. That's why build a training routine which is trying to work on all these components with fewer exercises. The next one we will go into, before that, I think I shouldn't forget the most important, the diaphragm. Do you know diaphragm is a muscle? Or it's only used to just breathe in and breathe out? Is that what you're thinking? Okay, let's say that if you're thinking it is only used for breathing in and out, when you are breathing at the peak level, the diaphragm must be also contracting at its peak. Now, don't you think it's fair to train your diaphragm? You stretch your hamstrings so that you don't injure your hamstrings. Do you stretch your diaphragm? Do you even know that diaphragm stretches? If your gut goes for a toss, your diaphragm switches off. If you are not expanding your lungs to the side, your diaphragm is not stretching. If your diaphragm is contracted, you are not filling your lungs up. Guys, remember, if you are training physically, it is not going to train your diaphragm. But if you train your diaphragm, it will train your physical fitness as well. The amount of oxygen the diaphragm takes when you are working at the peak is 15%. And if that 15% is not being utilized, if the diaphragm is not getting from your peak, it will take it from your knees, the closest ones, the back, the glutes, the thighs, the calves, all of that. So it is very, very important to train the diaphragm so that it is not taking away the VO2 max from the other muscles. Now let's go into the next one, that's called integration. Well, good that you've trained your diaphragm, you've trained your glutes, you've trained your quads. Amazing. Now, how will you teach that muscle to work for you, to integrate into the body? How will you teach? Now, for this, I call that as patterns of movement, because no muscle again works alone. So why should you train it alone? You need to train it in patterns. Do you do bicep flexion when you want to eat? Or is it your shoulder adduction, elbow bending, and also your wrist rotation? There's so much happening. So why are we training only bicep? Fine, you need to train bicep to strengthen it in the bulk, hypertrophy, etc. But you also have to teach the bicep to work for you, not just contract at the time of loading. Right? Now, fascia is something that is the one which actually holds everything in your body together and also covers everything in your body. If any movement pattern end is not working properly, the information is taken to the other end of the connection through fascia. So your thoughts move through fascia, your movements are also recognized by your fascia. That's a huge topic, my favorite topic. I do a lot of fascial flossing. I train the fascia to make sure that the muscle has enough space to move and bulk and hypertrophy. So that's one. The next one is your immune system and lymphatic system. This is also something that I keep talking to a lot of people, especially when you're building toxins so much on a daily basis. Even if you're not running, you still build toxins. Close to 15 liters of lymph is what your body is constantly producing, absorbing, filtering. What is your lymphatic system, by the way? It's the first line of your defense for anything. May that be a mental breakdown, may that be a physical strain or stress, your lymphatic system comes into play immediately. So you need to also do such kind of movements. Now, what are the movements for lymphatics, guys? Just bounding movements, hopping movements, rebounding on a trampoline, anything which involves bounce, right? Those are your lymphatic movements which will move your fluids in the body, including blood. Now, the last and important, mental training or emotional training. Do we need mental training for running? Do we need emotions to be in place for running? I strongly believe the answer is yes. Your mindset for the day actually sets your body's intention for running also. If you are not in a frame to run, please stay at home. There are going to be situations where you go for a run, you feel better. Let me tell you, if the situation is more than what a good run can handle, you are for sure to injure your body. So please do take that also into consideration when you are training your body. Also train your mindset as well as emotions. Please do not forget about that. Now the next one is about recovery or rehab. Why do you want to recover? Why do you want to rehab your injuries? First is you're giving good time for the tissues to repair, also restore the function. In this case, it is your running. As I already mentioned, neuromuscular recovery. Because when you get injured, there are going to be disruptions from muscle to the brain. You are disrupting that as well. So it is important that you take that recovery. So whatever we have learned in the training cheat sheet, you are taking this also into consideration. Resolution of the muscle soreness. When you get injured, of course, there's going to be some pain. We need to make sure that you're getting out of that pain as well, right? Then next is psychological recovery. I'll talk about this in the next slide. What are the kinds of recovery? I'm sure everyone knows about active recovery or cross training. If you're running, you will go and play something else, basketball or something which is non-endurance, which is more like a skill set kind of a sport to make sure that the muscles which have not been used in your running, you can use them there. But again, you're using them. You're not training them, right? So instead of saying cool down, I like to say warm down. You are trying to put those muscles which have been repetitively used in a training session. You need to also make sure you're giving the other end of lengthening or contraction. So that's warm down. There were some questions about warm up, cool down being same and all of that. So I don't think so. We should even categorize cool down or warm down. An activity which can be done before you start running to activate your nervous system, saying that I am preparing my body and my brain and my mind to run a session of 40 minutes to 1.5 hours. That's something that I would say that should be your active recovery or before even you start your running session. Passive recovery. Well, in active recovery, I would also like to you guys to understand foam rolling does not come under active recovery. What did you do after your running? I did foam rolling. Good, that comes under passive recovery. But what about active recovery? Did you take care of that? Let's see what is passive recovery. Anything which ranges from releases, manual releases, physiotherapy sessions, massages, ice baths, walking in pools, that is pool immersion, swimming, stretching. When I say stretching, I do not mean stretching to end, I mean mobility. Then the foam rolling comes under passive recovery. Guys, foam rolling is not going to release the muscles. It is only going to make the muscles supple. It is going to distribute your toxins evenly into the muscle. It will help in making those fluid collections little more looser so that the lymphatic system is not struggling to drain it from the tough holding of the fluids. That's what foam rolling does. It's most important. However, it is not the only recovery that you should include in your recoveries. Nutritional recovery, while that is a huge topic to speak about on this platform today, but when you are preparing for races, it is a different nutrition. When you're preparing for training or off season, it's a different nutrition. But the baseline is you should be able to always fuel yourself with the buffer systems as well, not just for the trainings or the race. You should have some gas left nutritionally also once you finish a race or a training. That's my point of nutrition, if it has to be. Then you need to have some carbs, which is glycogen, and some proteins always by your side to do both kinds of recoveries, whether it is after race, whether it is after training or during the training sessions also. Then the next one is the hydration recovery. I don't mean H2O. I mean here your vitamins and minerals as a fluid balance, your salts. Because when you lose your fluids from your body, you do not lose H2O. If you keep drinking water alone, that is your H2O alone, you will be going into something called as hemodilution. You will be completely losing that vitamins available for the cells. You will be diluting it. So try not to keep telling yourself that I need to drink 3 liters to 5 liters of water. That is important. Apart from that, you need to also replenish your body every day. If your running is quite high, intensity is quite high, because you're losing salts, you're losing through. And it also depends upon the climatic conditions that you are running in. If it is cold, it is different. If it is hot, it is different. If it is something that suddenly it rains, suddenly it gets hotter, there are different ways to do it. What works for you is something that we have to do extensive assessment, etc. But the basic rule of thumb, add salts in your water. That's the basic rule of thumb. Now, psychological or autoimmune system. When you're running or even doing any exercise, please remember exercise can be considered as stress. Running can be considered as stress by your brain. So it switches off something called as sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the system which helps you to decide, should I run or should I fight? Fight or flight situation. I'm sure half of you must have heard about this, right? So when you are going through that fight or flight situation, which is happening both in running, how do you switch off? It is important that heart rate, which has touched about 160, the brain is feeling, oh my God, stress, stress, stress. How do you make the brain realize that I am not stressing right now? Please bring my heart rate down. Please bring everything to normalize. That's your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, how to switch on this parasympathetic nervous system? They call it as calm and digest and rest. Now, when I said rest, the other forms of rest is what you need to do rather than just lying on your bed. Then, how do you calm yourself? That's the next one I've put here, mental and emotional training. Both requires some kind of assistance. It need not be always a professional assistance. Just talking to a friend also can help quite a bit, right? So these are the ways that you can switch on the parasympathetic. Oh yeah, I forgot about the digest part of it. How you can relax your sympathetic nervous system is by digest. That is giving the nutritional recovery. So you need to know what to give the body once you have gone through that kind of stressful situation. So that's my take on kinds of recovery, kinds of rehabilitation, or kinds of training that you should be doing. Now, the last part of my presentation is bulletproofing. Very fancy word, right? Oh, wow, you can bulletproof your knees, you can bulletproof your back. It's so nice to hear that word. That means there's nothing which can stop me from using my knees or abusing my knees. Well, when I say bulletproofing, it only means that you are building the joints, the tissues, your mind, your skill, your technique to an extent that it possesses adaptability. It can adapt to any situation. You're building your any tissue, mind, skill, technique to adapt to situation, to the conditions. It has the resilience to do anything and has the resilience to take anything. And then it has the ability to also recover and back to retraining and back to getting you into your game. Now, if I have to take an example of knees, how do you bulletproof the knees? There are only tendons running through the knees and very small muscles behind the knees which are present. How can you make them only strong enough? It's not possible. Please don't train the muscles which are around the knees. Start thinking that no joint moves alone. So you need to also take your joints which are on the top of it or under it. You cannot work on the muscles which are coming only to the knee, but also the muscles which are coming from the top joint or going from the knee to the other joint. If I have to bulletproof my knees, I wouldn't only focus on the quads. I will focus on the glutes. I will focus on the lower abdominal region, pelvic floor, including to bulletproof my knees. Because if my pelvic floor and my diaphragm knows how to hold my body up, I am not talking about the traps. Traps do not hold your upper body. It's your midsection, which is your lats, which is your abdominal muscles, which is not just your six-pack muscle. There are 3 layers of your abdominals. One is your six-pack, which is called as rectus abdominis. The second layer is your obliques, which crosses to each other and just goes around your spine and your midsection as a corset. The third layer or the last layer is the transverse abdominis, which actually creates the vacuum in your midsection so that you become lighter. And that's core activation. If you are not taking care of all of this and you expect your knees not to get hurt, it's not happening. You are not going to be bulletproofing your knees. Forget the knees. You're not going to be bulletproof your pinky finger also if you're not taking care of the rest of the arm. So please do think about adaptability, resilience, recovery, and your retraining, not just thinking about one form of exercise or one component of fitness or one kind of exercise or one kind of muscle strengthening. That's not going to work for us. I know I must have lured you guys thinking that, okay, let's bulletproof. She's going to give us the list of exercises, which I will do it at home and make sure that my knees are better. Well, that can happen too. But if I know what has actually caused your injury, it may not be your running injury at all. It might be something that you must have got it when you were driving a car. It must have happened when you were going from sit to stand. Now, how do I give a knee injury or knee pain when you're running, which actually happened when you were going from sit to stand position from a sofa or a floor? Or you lifted something else, you lifted your kid. It could have been any reason. Without understanding where it started, how it started, what caused it, there is no way I can give you the set of exercises. We can do it as a practical session very soon. I'm looking forward for it. So the end of it, I would say, listen to your body. Yes, you can take advice from somebody like me, somebody like your trainer or your coach or your fellow runner. Please do take the advice, but do what suits you, what works for you. You have to experiment it. Calculated risks, calculated experimentation works beautifully. Stay behind or stay back of the pain which is causing the movement. go a little inside the movement and see if the pain is more or less, etc. And then keep moving forward. Definitely, I'm not going to tell you a good routine without understanding your body or you understanding your body, because you know the best, the body knows the best. So thank you very much for listening to me this long. I hope I did not bore you with so much of information. This is what I could tell you out of my experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chandana. That was extremely thought-provoking, I would say. I have certain questions for you. You spoke about active recovery, and I've seen a lot of people, runners, they have a misconception that soreness is bad. So, would you recommend running the next day of a heavy workout as active recovery for soreness?
So if they have done a strength training workout and then they have soreness, and that's when they are thinking whether to run or not. First of all, strength training, if it is giving you soreness for next 48 hours, that means you have loaded too much too fast. Right? So that's first thing. If I have to answer the question, should we run next day or not? Certainly you can, but you have to limit the intensity. You have to limit or you have to change your training schedule for running because you have soreness. So it can be a helpful thing to do because you are running and you're moving the muscles, but it will also, because there's a hop involved, as I said, there's a bounce involved, it can actually help you recover out of those lymphatics as well. Yes, the answer is yes, you can, but please tweak your intensity. Try not to push or try not to stick to the routine because that's what you have planned for this week.
Okay. And once a person has completely recovered from injury, how early is it advisable to get back to the particular activity?
So depending on the tissue which was injured or which was at fault, the timeline changes. Okay, so let's say it was the muscle injury, right? It takes usually 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the big muscle, small muscle as well. Takes 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks. But if I go by timeline, I don't think so I will be really doing justification to this question, because if I say 4 weeks and if they do not possess a good overall body conditioning and that's the reason why the injury happened, then it'll be too soon. The best guide for you to go, whether to do this training or get back to training, is to do the movement screen, like how I said in the beginning. See, do all the running drills first. Do the running drills and see whether your foot is planting well, you're able to do these drills without pain for certain amount of days or certain amount of minutes. Then you should start introducing yourself to the sport. So there are some sport specific drills which will call out for return to sport. So if you are aware, if you're working with some professional, they will be aware of these specific exercises or drills which will tell you that you are fit to go back to running. But the timeline, it's quite tricky to say that, because depending on their body conditioning and why the injury happened, were they involved in an accident or it was just a twist? Right. So I would say just, go by what the protocol has been, given by the doctor or the healthcare professional that you are consulting.
Thank you. Also, I've seen runners, and I would include myself in that category. I usually focus on strengthening my legs and maybe core to improve our performance, running performance. And the moment the trainer says, okay, today is your arm day and whatever, I feel, why am I doing it?
Beautiful.
So do you think smaller muscles, the muscles which seem less important, can be ignored, or are they not important at all?
Okay. Imagine you running without the arm movement. Just imagine yourself. How is your run going to be? Yeah, not possible. Yeah. Isn't it? So your arm also needs to be hanging out there and swinging, relaxed. To be relaxed, it takes a lot of co-contraction, right? Your stability needs a lot of core contraction. That's your spine and your upper mid back and your neck. Think about you running with your neck going forward and backward. Who will stabilize the neck back on the top of the shoulders? The muscles again, the small muscles again, right? So including, as I told you, the jaw, right? Okay, let's do a small test right now. I want you to place your 2 fingers right under your knuckle lines, okay? And press gently so that you can feel small pulp of a muscle.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I want you to look to your right. Just look. Did you see the whole head turned? I just want you to look to the right and look to the left. Do you feel some kind of movement happening under your fingers? Now imagine just eyes can move your muscles at the level of your neck and head. You are jumping, you are sprinting. Will the neck muscles not be involved? They are going to be. So to answer this question, I would say it is important to train every muscle because it will come under the category of buffer systems. Like when your muscles are tired or some unexpected intensity you had to add into your training or your race, your muscles that you have trained to its full efficiency, you will grab that efficiency from those non-worked muscles.
Thank you so much. I'm never going to crib now.
Yeah, don't. Because it's impossible not to move the arms or the upper body rotation and run forward, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, and if a person is overweight, do you think it increases the chances of getting injured? Is there any relation?
Not at all. I feel the weight problem comes when you haven't trained your muscles to carry your weight. I'm sure you must have come across people who are super lean, but yet they are in pain. Yet they have arthritis. Yet they have knee injuries or pains. Now, how will you justify that? It is not the weight of the body. It is the ability of the muscles to carry your weight. So train your muscle to carry your weight. Eventually, the body will take the shape and the muscle mass. If it is growing and getting stronger, your body lean mass also is going to go up, right? So that's something which you can actually add it, but it should never stop you from pursuing this kind of a thing. But again, slowly, gradually plan it. Too much, too soon, yes, will definitely affect and get them into injuries. Do not compare your progress with others. Even if you both are of same size, same weight, and doing same workout, your progression can be different. Even if you both are eating the same kind of nutrition or food, drinking the same kind of water, or are in same kind of lifestyles, still your progression will be different. So please do not compare. Work with your body, know your body, listen to the body, talk to the body, have a good conversations with your body.
And what about age? Some people, they start running at a very later stage in life. So
research says that your strength, or I would say endurance, is the thing which peaks between 35 to 45. Okay. Yeah. So there is no way that, age can come in between. Right? You can, again, you need to train your muscles, check where you stand at 40. What's your fitness level? What's your strength? What's your reflexes? What did you do in your school time? Did you play a sport like football, or did you play a game like chess? Then your different set of muscles are going to be working. Or did you nurture all those muscles throughout your 40 years? Or is it the first time you are actually moving or putting your body into any kind of movement like this? So you need to start from ground zero, lay all your foundations, understand your foundations.
And do you advise running on concrete roads?
Okay. So, like how sometimes, it bothers me running on concrete. And I have seen a lot of people who have no botheration running on concrete. it is not just that. I think it's the frame of the body. It's not just the terrain of where you're running. If you are trained and you have become resilient on concrete, you might have difficulties on turf, right? Because you have, as I said, adaptability. You have adapted your body in such a way that you are running without any injuries, or you have frame, your body frame is now so used to having that kind of a bounce back or ground reaction force. So you got resilient to it, you got adapted to it. Now, if you go and run on a different terrain, it's going to be different. So also train on terrains which are like where you want to race. Like if you're going to race on, if your marathons are more on roads, the down the roads or something like that, then you should be training also something like that. Yeah. So that's a very good question and a tricky question, but I would say that, train to be resilient. Yeah.
Also, there's a question regarding barefoot running. Some people do it very comfortably, and most majority doesn't, but there are people who do it comfortably.
Right.
Is it advisable, or it depends from person to person?
So why are we doing barefoot running? Why are we running with shoes? Okay. There are two different things, right? So it has to come from a purpose. Why did you choose to run barefoot? Then you will train for it. Why are you not choosing to run barefoot? Then there is going to be a training differently. I have no place to say whether you should be running bare feet or not. Like how you said, comfortably, there are people who are running barefoot.
Yeah.
So why would I go and tell them that don't run? And they'll be asking me this question, why shouldn't I run? Oh, because you're touching the skin directly to the road or something. But yeah, but my skin has become tough enough to take all of that. So I don't mind. Yeah. Then what do I have? Even scientifically, I prove it, they would continue.
And I have a question, like how much strength training, Pilates, they are needed for, I mean, how much is it sufficient for a good running? In the sense, some people feel that they do twice a week and it's sufficient because they are covering a lot of mileage in a week. For few, they feel mileage can be a bit lesser. They should focus more on strength. So is it very relative? It depends from person to person, or is it like very specific? For beginners, it has to be like this? And
I don't think so. If you are doing a training for, let's say, 6 weeks, depending on your pace, depending on your intensity, or depending on your training, the whole training schedule, you will give a little bit of strength, maybe a little bit of mobility, or a pattern movement, skill development, any functional training. So as your race is coming closer, you need to reduce your all of that, how you do the intensity. Same thing happens for your strength training also. Same thing happens for your mobility. Has to be there. There is no other way. It is non-negotiable. Mobility is non-negotiable. You have to do mobility every single day. Just make it as your daily routine, which works for you. Right.
And what about is nutrition and good diet extremely important for running injury free?
Absolutely. Hydration. Your tissues are constantly asking for refueling. You use it and you never give it back. That's not good. You have used your nutrition to run certain mileage, and then will you not refuel it? But what kind of nutrition works for you, depending on your gut, depending on your culture, right? What is your cultural background? Are you more of a rice eater? Are you more of a wheat eater? What is your preferences? It works like that, rather than because quinoa has been proven to be a very, very super food. Somebody like me, who's a South Indian, super big rice eater, I will not be able to sustain on quinoa. That's not going to be my first glycogen producing carbohydrate. It will just sit in my stomach doing nothing. It will not. So coming back to your question, yes, it is super important. You need to have all your macros, the basic macros. Again, experiment, Kitu. I don't think so. There is a proper recipe, and I think there's a lot of science also involved in it, what works for running specifically. There are a lot of articles out there. You can take a good professional help who are specifically good at giving you this kind of a nutrition plan. But if you ask me as a physiotherapist with an experience in, food for myself and for my clients, I would say keep it simple to start with. See how it is working for you. Then you can do some addition. Then you can do some elimination and see how it is happening in terms of, are you happy? Is your satiety achieved? Are you getting enough energy, etc.? So that is something that I would look at rather than, because it has proven good for Westerners, I wouldn't take that into my nutrition consideration.
And there's one specific question, that is sprinting, running very fast, actually bad for knees?
No.
No.
No. So, okay, sprinting itself by definition is at a certain speed, which is sprint for you, and for shorter periods.
Exactly.
By definition. Now, marathon is different. Your intensity, whether you have trained yourself to sprint for so long, is what your performance or your training has to be.
So basically, it's all training.
Completely. It has to be. As I said, there is no proper list of things that I can give you saying that do this, you will not have to do training. There is no way. You do training, then you don't have to do this one bit also. You just continue to do all the training essentials that I've just mentioned in the beginning.
Okay, so now this is the last question.
Okay.
Do you think marathon running is actually bad and harmful?
Really? This webinar itself is for people who are so passionate about it. How can it be bad? I feel even marathon running, okay, when we say running certain distances, completing your marathon, doing certain number of races in a month, or not races in a month, but races in a year, all that is going to give you one thing: euphoria. Right? It's going to give you that sense of achievement, that sense of freedom, saying that, oh wow, this is fantastic, I have done so much, I have really made my body a hit machine, I'm so great and proud about me. But you have to train it again. How can it be bad? Yeah, suddenly this night you have decided to do a marathon of 42 kilometers. Yes, it is bad. Because I'm saying that. Yes, it is bad. But you have trained for it for 6 to 18 weeks to 13 weeks, whatever the number of weeks that you require. Then it's a bliss at the end of the race. I'm sure most of you are right now connecting with me. What happens after you finish a marathon running? So whoever has asked this question, bad or good, if you are training to reach your finish line, it can't be bad, at least mentally.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. I would like to conclude by mentioning that most of us, especially beginners, might believe that running is an ideal form of exercise. It's cardiovascular, it doesn't require a lot of gear, it's easy and definitely a lot of fun. While these things are all true, it is important to remember that running alone without any stretching and strengthening exercises may set you up for muscle imbalances, leading to injury further down the road. With this, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Chandana Mannedi, for sharing her knowledge and valuable insights on running injuries prevention and their management. Thank you. Your presentation was extremely informative, engaging, and definitely thought-provoking.
It was a pleasure.
I would also like to thank everyone who took out time from their busy schedules to attend this webinar. Hope you all had a great time. Also, my sincere gratitude to Hyderabad Runner Society for always conducting such interesting sessions for benefit of the runner community. Thank you.
Arun sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Chandana and Kitu, for hosting this wonderful hosting and presenting this wonderful session. Many new insights, particularly around the training cheat sheet and bulletproofing techniques, and your small exercise of looking left to right and the impact of the muscle. I think there was no better kind of experiment by which we can understand the role played by the small muscles and how the holistic improvement is important. I think it was very well explained and a lot of things to gather. And I hope all our runners will watch this webinar and get more information. And like you touched upon, we are trying to follow it up with a physical clinic in which we can go through the movement analysis and how we can incorporate a lot of learnings that we should do. And it's not about just strength training, and there are a lot of other aspects, including the mental aspects and the physical aspects that we need to follow. That was the takeaway for all of us. Thank you once again for both of you for preparing and spending your time on the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. Just to close the live session. Thank you once again, Chandana and Kitu.
So the live is closed, Almada now?
Thank you.
Facebook Live is closed. Just in
Okay.
4 of us in the Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again,
much,
Chandana. It
Arun.
was very well paced.